Two balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. This is way back. Walk the ball.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Medium Large Sports Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined tonight by Matthew Moreno, a little earlier than normal, which we appreciate the folks that are able to join us, as always, live on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. Going to be a great show. Lots to talk about. DodgerFest. Lots to talk about. Kirby Yates officially signed. Ryan Brazer, DFA. We've got some promotional giveaways to break down as well. But I do want to give a quick shout out, Matt, to our friends over at Lakers Nation, because I don't know if you heard this, Matt, but there was a small NBA transaction that took place last night, and our guys over at Lakers Nation, sister site of ours, absolutely crushing it.
Yeah, Daniel and Trevor and everybody, Ryan, Matt Peralta, that whole group, they definitely have been busy since last night. And yeah, it was kind of funny. Like I fell asleep for a little bit last night because I was so tired, and I knew that I was going to have work to finish from DodgerFest. And so I thought, like, do I try to push through it, or do I just take a little bit of a nap now? And this was like at 8:20, 8:30-ish, I think. I don't like an hour, 45 minutes before the trade ended up happening. And then I woke up and I saw like there were a bunch of texts, and I was like, oh man, like what did the Dodgers do? Like, did I miss something? And it ended up being Anthony Davis to the Mavs, as you said. Luka Doncic is coming to LA. And I kind of joked, Dave Roberts earlier in the day was saying he called Los Angeles, I think, the epicenter of the sports world or something to that effect. And
yeah,
he was primarily talking about the Dodgers, but it was kind of like, well, did he know something? There's a little bit of crossover and maybe with the ownership groups there. But yeah, interesting. Great for us. Obviously, it's always, we've on the Dodgers side have certainly benefited from a great franchise being run and a World Series win, of course. And we've been waiting for the Lakers Nation side of our network to be able to enjoy some fun again. And so it's good. And now, this trade deadline's still coming up, so we'll see what else the Lakers end up doing.
Yeah, and I'm excited because I help out when Trevor Lane covering occasionally, and I'm on the books, I think, for like a week and a half or 2 weeks from now. So I think it's right around when Luka Doncic might be coming back from injury. So that might be good timing for me. Look, you and I are not in the Lakers waters nearly as deep as the guys over there are. And yet I'll just say, I freaking love this trade. Like I don't think the Lakers were going to be necessarily NBA finals, real threats in the finals this year. And so, yeah, do I think Luka and LeBron next to each other with no big is like not perfect? Of course. But if you can get a 25-year-old who's one of the 3, 4, 5 best players in the NBA, and in doing so, sending out a guy who's probably in his prime, but maybe the tail end of his prime, as a Lakers fan, the long-term view of getting Luka Doncic is, I thought the Lakers were going to be a mess, Matt, post like the LeBron Anthony Davis era, which is like, I think 2 or 3 years away at the most. And now that's not the case. How they pulled it off, like I've got non-Laker fans in my mentions, veto the trade. This is unbelievable. It's unfair, yada, yada, yada. But good time to be a Lakers fan.
Yeah, definitely. And, I do agree with you. I think part of me, though, wonders is there a world where maybe you could have traded LeBron James for Luka and a center to put Anthony Davis at the 4 the way he wanted? But, I guess we'll have to see on how LeBron and Luka pair up together. And like I said, what else the Lakers do before the trade deadline.
Yeah, I joked, hey, does LeBron want to go? Because there was this sort of like, how's LeBron feel about this kind of a thing? And I joked like, well, are there more moves? Is LeBron getting moved to a place like Golden State? They give Steph and LeBron a chance to make a run. Lakers add Kuminga and some picks, but it appears LeBron will be staying put. So as always, check out Lakers Nation, Trevor Lane and those guys. Daniel, who he mentions a lot of times he's on our show, but he's the, is it the managing editor? Is that his title over at Lakers Nation? Yep. So go check out the work that they do, because it is great stuff. And yes, Hawaiian Kira, Luka, generational player, I would say. Look, it's like they're just trying to do what the Dodgers are doing. It's a lesser version, of course, but it's good to have over there. We got a couple super chats. We got a big one here from John. John, we appreciate the super chat. He said, what's your opinion of the logjam for the 26 and 40 roster for prospects being blocked? The 40-man is currently full. The Dodgers had to DFA Ryan Brazer. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes just to make room for Kirby Yates. The good news is the 40-man will no longer be full in a few days, a week or so. When pitchers and catchers report, Matt, there's about 4 guys who could be added to the 60-day injured list and therefore taken off the 40-man immediately. We expect Clayton Kershaw to be one of the guys to take those spots. Who knows? A gentleman by the name of Kiké Hernandez might be included. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But on the 26-man roster side, If Kiké Hernandez were to be added, I think the 26 man is where it gets a little more interesting. We've seen the move with Brazer on the pitching side, but let's talk 26 man. I think they can fit these guys technically, but I think there are going to be some guys who on every other roster in the league might be up at the major leagues that are going to be beginning the season down in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, and all the different names you threw out there right now weren't prospects, which John is specifically asking about. And I was going to just cut straight to the point and say, if you're a prospect in the Dodgers organization right now, I have bad news for you.
Yeah.
You basically need to wait. And I hate to say it, like there needs to be injuries for your opportunity to probably come this year. I mean, the team is loaded. Obviously, we've obviously been covering the different additions throughout the offseason. Dalton Rushing is certainly the name that people probably are most familiar with, and is probably the one who is on the doorstep of making his MLB debut this year. I know you could make an argument on the pitching side just because of we have seen the past few years the Dodgers have needed a surplus and then some of pitchers to get through a season. So maybe Jackson Ferris type thing can sneak in that way. But I mean, yeah, John, look, it's unfortunate for the prospects right now in terms of like playing time, but 2025 is just really not looking, assuming things go according to plan, it's not looking like there'll be much of an opportunity for them to make an impact this year. And, that's the 40 man. And as Jeff said, like the 26 man is even more crowded. And that's without what we all assume is going to be Kiké Hernandez re-signing at some point. And that's going to create another headache, if you will. But yeah, I mean, it's the prospects are certainly going to need to be a little bit patient this year.
Yeah. And I think, it's a bummer for those guys as far as like getting paid quickly and that kind of a thing. And yet they're benefiting from getting sort of to tag along into World Series titles. They're getting the best player development. And as you said, look at how many young pitchers the Dodgers actually had make their debut in the last couple of years. So it's not like these guys don't get full-time jobs. They don't get full-time jobs, but it's not as if they don't get opportunities. For me, the non-prospects are the guys that I feel the worst for. It's the Hunter Fiducias of the world, who I think would be on a major league roster and yet is basically going to be under team control for the next little while as he lives out his options. So, John, we appreciate the super chat. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to Kiké Hernandez and that kind of a thing. Don't care 187 with the super chat. The Lakers are ruining baseball. Yeah, exactly. It's just LA. LA's ruining the world, I think, is just the vibe that people are going for now. And so it's a sad thing. But yeah, shout out to the Lakers for coming in and trying their best. Rob Pelinka doing his best Andrew Friedman impersonation there, which is awesome. Let's get to the first headline here. Kirby Yates officially signed by the Dodgers, announced. Ryan Brazer DFA'd. We can talk the Brazer move here in just a second, but the most interesting thing to me is Yates getting close to 40 years old, Matt, saying, I've got a few more years left. He signed a $14 million contract, can get to $14 million with some incentives and whatnot, but clearly the Dodgers think he's got at least one more good year in him. What was your takeaways from Yates's sort of media introduction?
Yeah, that comment certainly stuck out. I think he sort of, I don't want to say rationalized it, but explained it from the standpoint of, yes, he is going to be 38 years old, but if you look at his usage, some of that, of course, is because of injuries that he's dealt with, Tommy John, and missed like a full season. But in terms of innings and stuff like that, he's not necessarily all the way up there that you would expect with maybe a traditional, I don't want to say most cases with a 38-year-old relief pitcher who's been in the majors as long as he has.
Yeah.
So sure, you could kind of talk me into that. He certainly is trending in the right direction the past couple seasons. He mentioned, not necessarily being in a good place physically in 2023, but finding a way to sort of get through it. He said he felt a lot better last year and also settled into a role that sort of, and then you saw, the caliber of season that he ended up having. I think certainly, look, the Dodgers are, as you mentioned, with the financial commitment they're making, they believe in what Kirby Yates is going to be able to provide them, and have obviously Ryan Brazer was the odd man out in a crowded group, as John, the super chat we got from him asking about prospects and stuff, and we said, like, it's not just prospects, it's actual roster spaces for normal guys. This is a prime example of that. And I see this question here. Let me throw it up really quick from Ricardo. He's asking, why not wait to sign Yates until after the Dodgers can put players on the IL and not have to DFA Brazer? This was something that Brandon Gomes was asked after Brazier's press conference, and he said basically like the Dodgers were still going to have to find a roster spot one way or another. And so it just wasn't like whether they did it now or in 8 days, depending on when you're listening to this live right now, 8 days from now, when the 60-day IL comes into play for the Dodgers, they still would have faced, some decision making that needed to be done. And so that's that angle. Circling back to Yates, I think it's going to be an interesting signing and how the Dodgers certainly use him. Like there were a lot of discussions at DodgerFest, amongst relief pitchers that we got to speak to, Dave Roberts, of just, the depth and the different options he's going to have down there. And, if Yates is, if he replicates anything close to what he did last year, like cutting Brazer basically will I hate to put it this way, but like will end up sort of being worth it. Like the decision will make sense.
Yeah. And look, the thing I've said about Yates real quick on the few more years left piece is, as a relief pitcher who doesn't rely on high velocity, those are the guys that are going to be able to drag this thing out to 38, 39, 40, as he's hoping to do. And so, and that's the case. I mean, he throws like a 93-mile-an-hour fastball, and it was still incredibly effective because of the splitter that he throws with it. And so I think, again, the Dodgers have not made a 3-year commitment, which is good news as far as I'm concerned. They made a 1-year commitment. But you mentioned Brazer and the question that was asked to Gomes. I think it's a totally fair question. And my guess is, and it sounds like this is kind of what he said, is like, we're going to have to DFA somebody like Ryan Brazer at some point. So like, if we didn't do it now, we could kick this can down the road 2 weeks, maybe, but then a week into the season or 2 weeks into the season at some point, right? Like the one thing I feel like we've gotten right on this show, Matt, that the Brazer move sort of validated, that was not just me across our show, was if you don't have options, you're going to be on the cutting block. And Ryan Brazer was the guy that we had the top of our list of guys who could be moved, the tradable rankings, if you will. He was number 1 on that list. And guess what? He was the first one to go. So I feel like we got that one right. And it's because he didn't have options. That's the downside. It's not because he wasn't good. And I'll say one last thing on Brazer. I thought, they'll be able to trade him. The more I think about it, the more I wonder if he ends up just going to waivers and sort of becoming a free agent. And I say that because 1 year, $4.5 million is not a bad deal. But there's kind of a lot of guys out there that are Ryan Brazer equivalents that are not signed. And so why would you trade something for a guy like Brazer, who, if he signs a free agent contract, like he might get $4.5 million. It might be 3.5. It might be 5, but it's not probably worth trading something to go get him.
Yeah, and Jeff, real quick before we focus on Timmy, is thinking the same thing I am with you bringing up the trade candidates list. That was very bold of you to revisit that, because if you were with us when we were doing it live, Jeff,
the second time we had that conversation, most people were like, yeah, I get it. And again, the whole point was options, and he has none. And I want to just say, I feel vindicated by the fact that Brian Brazer was DFA'd, because the reason he was DFA'd was because he has no options, which is the very reason that Anthony Bonda was number 2 on that list. Now they've only made one move, so we'll see. And Bonda's been everywhere, and I like Bonda. I can say that till I'm blue in the face. Options matter to this team, and clearly the Ryan Brazer move says it.
Yeah, and I think, what's unfortunately, this is also kind of taking shape to be kind of a worst case scenario for the Dodgers, and from that standpoint, as you just alluded to, is I agree with you. I thought, okay, they DFA'd him. Certainly, like, he's good enough that you're going to be able to trade him.
Yeah.
But then looking at the landscape of everything, teams aren't spending really for there's how many teams could you say? I won't even say be aggressive, but just have been like proactive in free agency this offseason. You probably count it on one hand. And the Oakland A's, I'm not necessarily, or excuse me,
can we count teams like the Red Sox who have feigned aggression? They've told people how aggressive they've been and coming up short. No, because we might get to 8. We might get to 10 if we want to talk about teams who have claimed how aggressive they've been.
No, yeah, we need some legitimate action here. So I'm eliminating the Athletics, because as we have touched
record contract, Matt. How dare you?
As we have touched on in our other shows, that's been driven by a potential grievance being filed, and so it's clear, like, they're not trying.
Forced aggression does not count.
Does not count. So, that being the case, and Brazer is, in my opinion, a strong candidate now, as you said, to clear waivers and just end up being really like he'll reject. Yeah. I'm assuming he'll reject the minor league assignment. But as I'm saying that, is there a world where he thinks, I'm getting paid by the Dodgers anyway, if I'm only, and I use only air quotes, going to get the league minimum from another team, do I just stick around in Oklahoma City because I know that this team will probably go through relief pitchers? But then the other hand, if he does get called up at some point, and they will have to DFA. I don't know. Like maybe he does think it's worth it to give it, one shot. And if he's DFA'd during the season, then at that point he moves on. But yes, I initially thought the point of this was that a trade was easy and likely because he's talented enough.
Yeah.
Team friendly deal. But then yes, as you mentioned, there isn't spending out there, and so he's probably going to clear waivers. Dodgers going to be on the hook for his payroll, and then he'll go probably get the minimum from some other team.
Yeah, and I always forget. I think if he goes and signs another contract, I think he can sign for money, and it doesn't count against the $4.5 million the Dodgers have to pay him. Every sport does this differently. Right. Like the NFL, it's like Russell Wilson can go sign the minimum because the Broncos have to pay him this amount. Right. But I feel like in baseball, I could be wrong about this, but I feel like in baseball, if he were to sign a $2 million contract, he just gets the 4.5 from the Dodgers already, and then he can go get whatever. Do you know if on that? Do you have any clarity on that?
I am like 95% certain that yes, that is the case. And the only if he were to be claimed by a team and the Dodgers work out some sort of trade, or they just send him to the team that claimed him off waivers, then they assume his $4.5 million salary for this season.
Correct.
But yes, if he is just if he clears waivers, signs a complete new deal, he's still owed money from the Dodgers, and then gets plus whatever his next contract would be.
There you go. All right, let's shift gears here. Let's get to some stuff at DodgerFest. We know this experience for some that went was different than others. We're going to get to that. Let's just talk about the headlines and the guys who spoke or were spoken about. And as always with the Dodgers, it starts with the man himself, Shohei Ohtani, Mr. 50-50. And the headline here, Matt, was getting a sense of, hey, where are you at in the rehab process? And some of the quotes, I'll be honest, kind of scared me a little bit about how major the surgery was that he had to have. But Dave Roberts did come up and say that from the pitching side, it, quote, sounds about right that May would be when we see him able to return to the mound. They've got to see where he's at in spring training. May is kind of maybe a little bit later than sort of the initial timelines projected, although I think you and I, if we had been asked, probably said something like May or June for when Ohtani starts to pitch. So on the Ohtani front in particular, were you surprised by the way he described the injury and the surgery that he had?
A little bit. I mean, it being interpreted as Ohtani saying, calling it a complicated surgery. Obviously, that's not something you want to hear. I think something maybe could have been lost in translation from the standpoint of like, yeah, it is your shoulder, and it could be like it is. Any surgery there's risk, right? Like yeah. you run the risk of not necessarily coming back 100% from that with shoulders, especially. And now Ohtani is benefiting from the fact that it is his left shoulder. So it's his non-throwing from a pitching perspective, and it's his back shoulder from a hitting perspective, because as I've mentioned, and citing players, obviously not my own personal experience. I think you actually have I was going to say, we
want to talk left shoulder surgeries. Let me know. I can't speak to being an elite athlete, but I can speak to having shoulder surgery.
Yeah. So, I go back to, I'm Adrian Gonzalez, somebody who has stuck out a lot because I was around him when he sort of would bring it up. Cody Bellinger also, and Dave Roberts has mentioned it. Just, it's known in the sport that surgery on your front shoulder as a hitter, your power and your swing is impacted that first season back. So there is optimism, as I was saying, that this is Ohtani's back shoulder, not his lead one. And so that should be helping him. But yeah, it is, you factor, hearing him call it a complicated surgery, understanding that there is, you never want somebody to undergo that type of procedure. And then you also layer in the fact that the reality is he's also still we haven't necessarily seen him fully return from his elbow surgery. Yeah. He hasn't pitched yet. And that's still that progression is still, I think it was slowed a little bit because obviously he couldn't do anything after having the left shoulder surgery. But there are question marks, if you will. But I will, Freddie Freeman, Dave Roberts both said if there's somebody that is going to do it again, it is Ohtani.
Yeah, and again, here's the good news. If he comes back in May, guess what? We don't need him till October. Just you get a 5-month major league level rehab assignment, Ohtani. Just get the shoulder ready for October, and we'll all be good.
I'll even add, I know Dave Roberts has sort of been sticking with this May timeline for Ohtani pitching. I am shocked that they're even saying that it would be that soon. I don't see why not. And I don't necessarily look, just because they're saying it doesn't mean that they're going to delay it for 2 or 3 weeks into, then it's late May type thing. And if it's that, then fine. But I still don't really understand why like there's necessarily this desire or rough timeline that Ohtani will be pitching before June.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. And again, the beauty of the Dodgers, especially this season, is I would be stunned if games matter in May that this team is playing. And so it doesn't mean everything's going to be locked up, but I just think you can be way more patient.
Are you saying they're going to be like 35-0 in by middle?
I have predicted so far that they're gonna get to like 110 wins or whatever the number was to beat the mark from a few years ago. So again, they're just, not to mention their number 6 starter right now is like Tony Gonsolin or Dustin May, which if that's your number 6 starter, I don't think you're going to need to be in a rush to go out and get, to replace that guy in the rotation necessarily. Another pitcher that we could talk about here, Tyler Glasnow. This is a guy, admittedly, I've been highly skeptical about the health of over the last 6 months or so. And I would say, Matt, there's some vindication to the people that were skeptical, because he told the story of where his elbow is. And I'll start with the good news, which is the headline. It was just tendonitis. He's fine. He's throwing normally, is what he says. But he did go back and say he went and took an MRI the first time back when this was originally injured, and it looked really bad. They were like highly concerned about it. But don't worry, Matt. They did a second MRI and everything was fine, and he didn't need surgery or anything. So he said he's throwing normally. He's changed some mechanics a little bit in hopes of taking some stress off of his elbow. But first MRI, really bad. Second MRI, nothing wrong. Just tendonitis, Matt. The guy with massive injury history and elbow problems, throwing normally. He's going to be fine.
Yeah, I don't really know what to make of this one. I obviously am not a doctor. I feel like I have certainly gained in medical experience, both from my own personal life and also just being around the Dodgers the past few years and the different injuries that they've really had, the number of injuries, I should say, that they've had. I just frankly speaking, I don't understand how you necessarily have one MRI that shows tendonitis, but is concerning enough, like alarming enough that, there are discussions of, hey, like we need to figure something out. We're shutting you down, this and that, like you're not coming back.
Right.
And then another MRI, subsequent one, a second one, as Glasnow said, shows nothing. Like I don't know what tendonitis looks like in an MRI. So I will preface it with that.
These doctors might not either, to be fair. We're not really not entirely sure.
Maybe. I mean, look, maybe like the images are a little cloudy, if you will, and so they can't fully see ligaments and all the tendons and stuff like that. And then once the tendonitis cleared, they do see that, the UCL and all the other stuff is fully intact. Like, I don't necessarily understand like the jumps between those two. We can only take Glasnow at his word, obviously, and I don't think he would stand up there and purposely be deceitful or lie about anything. So again, I don't understand how we got from point A to point B, but they did. And if, as you said, glass half full, there's plenty of reason for optimism. He's feeling good. He's been throwing. His offseason workout routine is relatively normal, with the caveat of he did implement some changes with a goal. He called it his number one goal this year is to be healthy. So as of now, like there's, reason to just be excited that he'll be part of the rotation.
Yeah, and I see Matty Man asking, are we now believing what they say about injuries? I think we're skeptical if Dave Roberts gives us an injury update. If the player themselves tells us what's happened, then I think we could take that a little bit more seriously for what it's worth.
And I will add too that Glasnow is somebody who he is like pretty in tune and knowledgeable and open mind of, okay, like what's going on? Like, how can I fix it? Stuff like that. So like I said, I don't think he would stand up there and say, the second MRI didn't show anything if there was the possibility that it maybe still, like, I think he would have said like, it got better. There was still some, tendonitis, but then with rest, that went away. Like, I don't see him pulling a Dave Roberts as much as we like to sort of, joke and reference.
It's true. It's true. Let's get to Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts is the starting shortstop for the Los Angeles Dodgers. It remains a mystery publicly whether that was his idea or not his idea, based on some DodgerFest quotes. He said he'll play wherever they want him to play. He's just all about the team winning. I know there are lots of people that are skeptical of that, and I'll just leave that out there. He did say, Dave Roberts, I should say, about Mookie Betts said, quote, he feels like a completely new person out there, said he feels more comfortable, more confident with Mookie at shortstop. Mookie told the story of Chris Woodward hitting him ground balls at 9 p.m. at night, basically all over Los Angeles, just wherever they can find some dirt and grass. Mookie said, my job is to catch it and throw it over there. So are we buying this? Are we? I've said full offseason, Mookie Betts, shortstop, going to be fine. There have been others who are skeptical. There have been some who have made New Year's resolutions about how honestly they may be able to answer this question, Matt. But where are you at on Mookie Betts as shortstop?
I think Mookie Betts is in a much better place to play shortstop now than he was in spring training last year.
100%. Yeah, like it's 8 days left in spring training last year.
I still do stand by that. I don't think that this makes the most sense. I think that there have also been enough indications that Mookie, in some regard, has steered the ship to get himself to, I'll just say, the infield. I won't say shortstop
I'm letting people come to what I'm just telling the people, Matt, what Mookie Betts said himself. Okay, I'm just the messenger here.
Yeah, and so I do think that what I also found interesting as I was standing there, we're recording Mookie's interview for us, was that he expressed confidence in being able to play the position and being much more comfortable with the work, but then he also sort of kept saying, like, we'll have to see when the game's start, and if I make mistakes, I make mistakes. It was like, well, I mean, yes, like I can sort of get what you're saying. Like I feel prepared. Ultimately, the practice in the off season, like when you get into game scenarios, like it does change a little bit, right? But it was a little strange that he sort of kept throwing that out there. And I was thinking, well, like, are you confident in your ability to? Are you sort of hedging here? Like, what's going on?
Yeah. No, look, the interview, it's up on the Dodger Blue YouTube page. All the stuff from DodgerFest is up there or will be up there in the next day or two. And there's tons of great stuff. The Mookie one I watched, I'm with you. It's a very bizarre interview because he just kept saying, like, we'll see, among other things. But yeah, I guess we'll have to take Mookie's word for it. We will see. Yeah. We will see in a couple of weeks. Last one on the major players, and then we can get to some of the other stuff. Freddie Freeman shared some stories about kind of the journey he went on with his ankle. And I thought this was interesting. Basically, there were questions of like, why did he wait so long to have surgery on his ankle? I believe he had ankle surgery like December 1st, maybe the last day of November, first day of December. And he basically said he started to feel better after the World Series, felt like he was in a good place during the World Series. And so 3 weeks afterwards, he thought he was going to be able to just rest this thing, kind of do some physical therapy, strengthen it. It ended up still bothering him a little. So he went in for scans. And like an hour later, they were like, you need to have surgery on this. And so he ends up having surgery. The good news, he's on track for opening day here. So yes to all of the things I just said. And yet the headline is, seems like he will be fine. Seems like the ankle's going to be fine. Freddie's a guy who values playing every single day, obviously. And so, again, I believe him. When he says he plans to be ready for opening day, I think that means something to him to be in there on opening day. And so I'm confident that if Freddie says it's going to happen, that it'll happen.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think, the other part to this is he did say when the Dodgers start playing Cactus League games on the 20th that he probably won't be in the lineup. And I think that was telling because, as you mentioned, he is somebody who does want to play all the time. And so if he is already like throwing that out there, I think he understands that, hey, like spring training games are great. The Dodgers are obviously, they had a short off season and now they're having a condensed spring training because of the Tokyo series. So let's not worry about, the Cubs in the middle to late February. Yeah. I'm looking ahead to, coincidentally, when they start the season against the Cubs. So if you are going to be going out to spring training or if you're going to be reading articles on our website or listening to us talk, like Freddie Freeman will be limited at first. He has not started running yet. He's planning on, I think by the end of this week, to do some lateral movements and things like that. He believes that I think by the time the Dodgers, they have their first full squad workout for spring training, that he'll be cleared for running. So that'll be a nice progression. So those will be checkpoints, if you will, to sort of keep an eye out for. He did say that similar to, during the postseason, he was getting asked every single day about, we thought was just his ankle. It turned out to be also the rib fracture that he was dealing with. Crazy. But he wouldn't have an answer on how he was feeling or how the next day was going to look until he sort of went through it. And he told us at DodgerFest that it's kind of be the similar thing of he won't know, every day he'll have to see how he's doing. The good news is he just started hitting off a tee a few days ago, and physically he has responded well to that. So certainly trending in the right direction. Again, don't be alarmed if when you turn on, a Dodgers spring training game, if he's not necessarily in the lineup. He did joke that he could DH. He thought he could because the Dodgers don't have one, he said. Okay. But then in all seriousness, he said, obviously with Ohtani in the lineup, if Freddie, speaking about himself, needs to get at bats, he can go into a a minor league game and kind of the controlled environment that the Dodgers love so much, where they can make sure a player leads off every inning and stuff like that to get 10 at bats in one game.
Well, I'll never forget Miguel Vargas going up there knowing he wasn't going to hit because they wanted to get him some reps in the field. So the Dodgers have shown how much they care about some elements of these spring training games. They've told us the truth on that one. I just saw Terry ask us, did I miss the conversation on Kiké Hernandez? No, perfect timing, Terry. Welcome into the show. We appreciate having you. This one was maybe the most interesting quote to me. Brandon Gomes was asked about it, and he said, we'll never close the door on Kiké Hernandez. This wasn't like just the normal, like, well, he's a free agent. We hope for the best, blah, blah, blah. We know Bill Plunkett went on Dodgers territory about a week ago and said, I'm not hearing anything on the Dodgers side. Well, here's Brandon Gomes saying out loud that they're not closing the door on Kiké Hernandez. I think I've been around 80 to 85% that Kiké was going to be back. I know you were high as well. My confidence has not dipped even in the slightest. I know there was some rumored Yankee interest potentially, but are you pretty confident that come February 10th or 11th, once pitchers and catchers report, guys can be added to the 60-day IL, that Kiké Hernandez will be shortly following Clayton Kershaw with the contract signing?
Probably. I think just from the standpoint of, you and I, we discussed this in a potential contract. I think it was a week ago when we were doing the Sunday show. And you brought up a great point of, I think, because the Dodgers are the team we cover, we follow closely. Like there could be an instance of where maybe we start to overvalue. I don't want to say overvalue, but overestimate maybe what they would get on the open market from other teams. I think that's a scenario that we could be seeing unfold with Kiké.
Yeah.
I think, look, to me, I don't want to say his value only comes in October, because I think the versatility he provides during regular season is helpful to play multiple positions.
Sure.
The bat certainly plays up in October. There's no
plays down the rest of the year, plays up in October. I'll give him that.
That's fine to me. Like I have said repeatedly, the Dodgers are playing for a World Series. Like whether they win 99 games in the regular season or 110, like that doesn't matter to them. Ultimately, they want to win a World Series. I think Kiké Hernandez is key to that. And so I do believe he'll be back. I would put my percentage maybe at about 80.
Okay.
My confidence level at about 80%. It's dipped a little bit from maybe like 85 earlier in the offseason, I would say. And some of it is just looking at how the roster has sort of taken Michael Conforto coming on board, like Ha-Seong Kim, like that stuff, and needing to see, they really do have a logjam now. And I know that I've been saying I think a Chris Taylor trade is possible, but there are certainly obstacles to that.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the 26-man roster. So the Dodgers are going to be able to carry 13 position players. And you can just do the math, right? Shohei Ohtani is one. You got two catchers. You got Mookie, Freddie, Muncy, and Rojas, I would say, are all locks. Then you've got Conforto, Edman, Teoscar, all locks. Chris Taylor, as long as he's on the roster, is a lock. That's 11. We haven't gotten to Andy Pages, James Outman, and Ha-Seong Kim, or Kiké Hernandez. So if Kiké Hernandez is signed to this team, he would be number 12, who has to be up in the major leagues. And then you're talking about Outman, Pages, and Ha-Seong Kim that are competing for one spot on the major league roster. So on one hand, Matt, I'll be honest, that's like in some ways less crowded than I thought, because all three of the guys I just mentioned could easily be sent down to Oklahoma City, and none of them have to be DFA. There's not a roster casualty necessarily. Not to mention, if Ha-Seong Kim or Andy Pages or James Outman wasn't going to be an everyday player anyways, then maybe they would prefer those guys to be getting everyday reps down at Oklahoma City. And so in some ways, I'm like, oh, there's actually a spot for him here. And then maybe it's Kim or Pages who gets the 13th spot, and the other guy in Outman starts the season in Oklahoma City. And yet on the flip side, if you're the Dodgers, do you want to just continue pouring money into a guy who's going to be, that you're paying 110% tax on, who's going to be the 12th or 13th guy on your bench, and who is also preventing a young player like Andy Pages or Ha-Seong Kim from actually getting real meaningful reps and developing? I've long said the value for Kiké Hernandez and the Dodgers makes a ton of sense to me, way more sense than any other team in the league. So my percentage, I would say, is going the other direction from 85 to 90. I think he's going to be back. I think the quotes from Brandon Gomes make me more confident in that. I think that the smoke from some of the beat reporters makes me more confident in that, and just the fact that he's still available. So I'm more confident in Kiké, and I see the path forward on the roster, although to the point you just made, a Chris Taylor trade would make this way easier to stomach, I think, if you're the Dodgers and some of these young guys in particular.
Yeah, because, I think we saw enough from Pages last season that like
100%.
he's ready for like the continued sort of everyday opportunity, or at least 75% playing time type thing. And then with Kim, like I don't know, not that they signed him to huge money, but I don't know though if they make that move without and then trade Gavin Lux without the intention of at least giving him the opportunity to earn the starting job at second base.
Let me put the money into perspective real quick. They literally just DFA'd Ryan Brazer, who's making more per year than Ha-Seong Kim is.
True.
So, I mean, like, I think we see they signed this guy from the KBO, etc., the Gavin Lux trade, and it was reported on our show that he was told ahead of time we're going to make a move, and then Gavin Lux is traded. I think long-term, next 2 or 3 years, Kim, I've said repeatedly, I'm skeptical of the impact he will make. I think he's going to be an Oklahoma City guy in year one. I'm not that's not a popular opinion. I'm not heavily populated in the place where I'm making that from, but to me, I think Pages makes way more sense, and Kiké, I think is going to be a far better player than Ha-Seong Kim is this year.
Yeah, I guess my question then at that point is if Kim, let's say Pages and Kiké are the two guys for the final roster spots, how are you handling second base at that point?
Tommy Edman, starting second baseman, Andy Pages in center field.
Okay, so then this opens up the other can of worms. Like if that is the route the Dodgers end up going, my question would be, I need to be careful how I phrase this because of my New Year's resolution. We saw Tommy Edman playing shortstop last season. He has plenty of experience there. Why would your middle infield not be flipped at that point?
Depends on who you ask, how they might answer this question here, Matt. I hear everything you're saying. I'll say this. Tommy Edman at second base is like maybe the best defensive second baseman in Major League Baseball. I think he's a good to potentially very good defender at shortstop. I think second base is his best defensive position. So if you're going to try Mookie at shortstop, I think having the elite guy next to him at second base is probably a helpful thing. Look, we're all dancing around. Like if Mookie Betts wants to play shortstop, he's going to play shortstop. That's why. That's the short answer. The answer that I wasn't ready to fully admit because Mookie Betts is saying otherwise. It's because Mookie wants to play shortstop. There's your answer, Matt. Do we feel better now?
Fair. I mean, that honestly wasn't. I wasn't trying to get you to that point. Like it was like, again, and it is my personal assessment. And I think to me, Tommy Edman's. I forget. I think I settled at I liked Edman most in center field when we were discussing.
I mean, if we're comparing him to the thing is Pages is rough in center field. So
see, I think I'm a little bit more bullish on Pages than you because I saw him at least get better late last season. Early to middle of the year, yes, it was rough, but he got optioned, he came back, he was improved, I felt like.
Okay.
I still think that I would probably put Tommy Edman in center field.
And then you've got like Ha-Seong Kim playing second base.
Probably. I mean, him and like Kiké or Taylor, like some sort of platoon type thing, figure it out. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, it's we moved all over the board with the conversation about Kiké. Like the Dodgers certainly they have flexibility. They have a lot of literally minor league options and options at the major league level of where they could place guys, and that's something that the front office certainly loves.
Okay, let's do this because there were a couple guys on my list here for DodgerFest, and we could do them at the same time. Chris Taylor and James Outman were two gentlemen who both spoke. I wrote down after the Chris Taylor quotes that he said a lot of words that didn't really mean much other than to say he's claiming there have been mechanical changes. James Outman, on the other hand, has seemingly no clue what went wrong for him last year. Did say he added 5 pounds of muscle, went back to work grinding the way that he knows how, and he's hoping that fixes things. If you had to pick one of these two guys to be way better than they were last year, which both of them were very bad in 2024, like if you had to pick one that you felt like you would point to and say, if I had to choose, I'm picking this guy, Taylor and Outman, who would you choose?
Man, this honestly is a coin, like it's a literal coin flip. I'll go Taylor just because of the experience.
Okay.
But hearing Taylor say, he made a lot of I've said it before. Taylor and Gavin Lux were two guys who've consistently said, there's a lot that goes into their swing and mechanics and this and that. And so to hear that Taylor is trying to, I don't want to say overhaul, but really sort of aggressively make some, I think what could probably be deemed aggressive changes. Like, is he going to be sure? Doing that in the offseason is much easier than during the season, right? When you're fighting just mental battles and pressure, and you see yourself going 0 for 3, night after night. That starts to really weigh on you. So doing it during the offseason is certainly easier. I just wonder if, like, can you make kind of those wholesale type changes? It sort of seems, but with Outman, I mean, I think, I don't.
I'm definitely. I mean, to me, like Chris Taylor had a great run as a Dodger. I just think like this is, and he's not even that old, but I think this is kind of just how things sort of play out for some guys towards the end of their career. That like, whereas James Outman, it's like he's young, so there's like less that you can dramatically point to. And I've said, as much as I like Outman, I know he has no prospect pedigree. I know the slumps have been extended, and both of those things are cause for concern. Like if a guy was a top 100 prospect, performed, and then didn't perform, there's going to be a way longer leash. Outman was never a top 100 prospect. He was kind of an out of nowhere guy. He blows up that rookie year and then kind of stumbles down the stretch, was really bad last year. And so even though the sample size, like I posted this on social media, 200 games, he's a 4.1 win player, a 108 weighted runs created plus, 28 home runs, 18 stolen bases. Like the MLB stat line for James Outman is very good. It's just that we all saw the last like 40 or 50 games he had last year, and it was really, really bad. And so for me, he's young, he's athletic. I think the one thing you can say with Outman is like, he provides you something. He's very good defensively in center field, which is a position, as we just mentioned, they don't exactly have a ton of guys that you feel great about. Like I would say this, of all the guys that they have in center field, I think you can make a case he's the best defensive center fielder on the roster. Now, maybe some people would argue Edman, and like Edman's really good, so I think we're splitting hairs there. But I think Outman at least has like a thing he can fall back on, which is like, I'm the best defensive center fielder you have, and that's a position that's like an important defensive position. Whereas Chris Taylor's like versatility, and they're like, well, that's cool because like we probably can sign Kiké and he could do that, and Ha-Seong Kim might be able to do that, and yada yada yada. So I would bet on Outman if I had to choose, and I'm so excited to see him in spring training because I just think like there's a chance that if he can tap even into something that isn't remotely 2023-esque for James Outman, like if he can be a slightly below average to average offensive player with the defense that he provides and the power that he provides, I think that's like a really valuable player. And I think that's the more likely outcome to me than Chris Taylor.
That's fair. And what'll be interesting to see is if that does happen, what does it mean for Like, let's say Pages does like okay for himself. Like, do the Dodgers bet on Pages bat, or do they want Outman's glove in center field? So that'll be interesting. And Outman, he's inherited the defensive title from one Kevin Kiermaier, who some circles deemed him the best center fielder ever. I believe was the wording that was used.
Great defender. Offensively, pretty much a pitcher. So we got a couple more quick ones on DodgerFest, and then we'll move on here. Miguel Rojas shared that he had some surgery as it related to the hernia last season that cost him some time. That was infected. It pushed his recovery back a couple weeks, but he's nearing 100%, so should be good to go. Tony Gonsolin shared that he was nearly added to the World Series roster despite not pitching all season. He was basically ready in October if they needed him, which means he should be a full go this spring. And last but not least, the part that I was maybe most encouraged by, Emmett Sheehan has started throwing off a mound, had Tommy John surgery in May. It sounds like his rehab is sort of ahead of schedule. He thinks he could be in rehab games by May or June. And that could be a really dangerous arm that the Dodgers could be getting back in the second half of this season. So a few more updates. Matt, you were there at DodgerFest. Like any other just sort of takeaways, big picture things before we move on here?
The players have heard the narrative that the Dodgers are ruining baseball and that they're now a villain and this and that. This might shock you, but they do not care.
Yeah,
they don't understand what other teams want the Dodgers to do. Or basically, the question that was thrown back to any reporter who asked that was, and not directly to them, but their response included some variation of, "Are the Dodgers just not supposed to try to sign like good players?" Like, so they're aware of it. I don't think they're going to feel any sort of added pressure, which I think is a little interesting because, I think it is heightened because of what they've done on top of, whenever you have, look, we've discussed it, like every year the Dodgers are expected to win the World Series. So that's not necessarily new. I do think that it's increased a little bit this year just because of all the additions they've made. but yeah, I mean, they don't seem to be impacted by it. There's a lot of talk of, how close last season's team was, and, hopefully trying to replicate a lot of that same feeling this year, which I know we've heard it from several players say each season is different. Each team is different. Even if you bring back, the core group of guys and maybe only make one or two changes, like that team still needs to gel, which I can kind of understand. But it's just interesting to hear that that thought process shared, because if you have a lot of your same leaders, then in theory, and much of the same roster, then in theory, it should just be a lot of the same. Right. And so that'll be interesting to see is, how quickly and how close this year's team can come together compared to last year, because that was certainly a big talking point.
Totally. And as they say, winning heals all things. So I'm imagining that if things are rolling midway through the season, that there's going to be some camaraderie in that group. But again, one thing the Dodgers, I think, have done a good job of is they've brought in some new faces and some new blood. A guy like Kirby Yates, who I think it's one appearance in the postseason and, at the age of 38. So you have guys that are going to bring the hunger, and there's not going to be a sense of complacency. Not that I expected there would be, but it's just natural to have some complacency. And so when you bring in a Blake Snell and a Michael Conforto and a Tanner Scott and a Kirby Yates and those types of players, I think it's going to motivate. They've been in losing situations. They know how hard it is to get to the mountaintop. And so there's going to be some emphasis on getting back there. So I think it'll be a good mix. Again, kudos to the Dodgers front office for how they pulled this thing off. So let's shift gears here. One of my favorite days of the year, Matt, is when the Dodgers release their promotional schedule. And I probably shared this story before, but when I was a kid, basically the way that we would get to go to Dodger games is I have a twin brother, and the two of us, we would get to pick basically 5 games that we would go to every single year. And there was one game that each of us got to go to just kind of by ourselves. So we would get I don't know what it was, 2 tickets with our mom. And that was kind of the deal. And it was always a matter of who are the opponents they're playing was sometimes a thing. Like when Mark McGwire was a big deal, I picked to go to see the Cardinals. And of course, I've told this story. Mark McGwire did not play that day. I was very devastated. That was my one pick for the whole year. But oftentimes, especially now, it revolves around giveaway days and promotions. And so one of my favorite things to do on this show is to look at the list of promotions, to rank my favorite ones, of which there are many. Shout out to the Dodgers, the greatest promotional giveaway team in sports as far as I'm concerned, and draft them. And so we're each going to pick 5 in a snake draft. And Matt, I will allow you can have the first pick, or if you really like the number 2 item on your board, you can have second. We're not going to do a snake. We're just going to alternate here. So, but I'll let you have first pick unless you want to defer.
No, I'll take the first pick just because I would want to make sure that I end up with this one.
Yeah, I have a feeling it's going to be the same one on my board as well. There was a clear number 1 for me, although I like my number 2 and my number 3 as well. So what do you got number 1?
So the first one I think is the Kobe bobblehead.
Okay, so interesting. I had Kobe second, but go ahead because I think this is a great one.
For me, obviously, like we were discussing Lakers Nation, or I'm growing up in LA during that era with Kobe, to see them do they've done the jerseys a couple times now. So to see it switching to a bobblehead, I think it's going to be pretty cool. So that's definitely one that I would want to make sure I add to my collection.
My number 1 was the Freddie bobblehead, and I've got a bunch of Freddie bobbleheads, but knowing that it is signifying the moment, which will likely be the greatest sports moment I ever see in my life, it's number 1 on my list. So I had Kobe 2, but Freddie Freeman bobblehead number 1 on my list. Third pick is all yours, Matt. To me, there's kind of 3, 4, 5, and then a drop off on my list. Just giving you hints on my draft board here. But who you got number 3?
I will say before I do that, Freeman was second on my list.
Okay.
That I think that is, as you mentioned, they've done several Freddie Freeman bobbleheads since he's been here, but certainly the pose and what that moment meant, and obviously going on to win the World Series, makes it definitely a collector's item. Next on my list, I would do the Oral Hershiser jersey.
Oh, okay.
And I think the main reason being it's different. The Dodgers typically, the jerseys that they do is obvious for Jackie Robinson Day each year. They give away a jersey. They think they did a hat one season as well.
Yeah, Jason Austin mailed me the Jackie Robinson hat. It's freaking awesome.
Yeah, sometimes they'll do, I think, kind of a generic jersey. Yeah, there's the hat if you're watching this with us. Sometimes I think they'll do kind of a plain jersey, but this one being Hershiser, basically a throwback. Yeah. And then again, on a personal level, the connection with Walker Buehler and how that whole story, being able to connect it that way, I think that's a great giveaway.
Yeah, and I'll say like the quality of jerseys that they give away are pretty remarkable, and so the fact that that's the case, that like you're not getting some piece of crap necessarily. I mean, look, it's not authentic, but the quality I think goes up. Okay, so you're going your Hershiser jersey, which I'll be honest, not on my list, so I'm feeling good about that one. I've got Roki Sasaki bobblehead next. It's the first one. If you think this guy is going to be a superstar, lots of people do. I want to have his first bobblehead. So Roki Sasaki bobblehead. What's that?
Get in on the ground floor.
Get in on the ground floor. So I got Roki Sasaki next. So Freddie and Roki for me so far. You've got Kobe and the Oral Hershiser. We're going to do 5 picks each. So pick number 5 for you, Matt, is what?
The replica World Series trophy.
Okay.
With the caveat, I am curious to see the size.
Do we know size? Yeah, okay.
That's what I'm not sure. Like, I'm hoping it's not going to be, like Foco did like little paper. I mean, I have it up on my shelf behind me. You probably can't lean. Yeah, no, you can't really see it. Foco did like paperweight versions, which work for like a little shelf like this. So I'm hoping that it's not necessarily that. But Foco also sold a larger one. I'm hoping that the Dodgers end up.
It could be like a bobblehead size. A bobblehead size would be nice.
I'm hoping that they end up somewhere in the middle. And yeah, as you said, bobblehead size are a little bit smaller. I think they probably will be. They typically don't like shortchange fans with the designs of these things. So yeah, that's that with the caveat of if it's like too small, then I'm going to be disappointed.
There you go. Next up for me, my third pick, and this is a tricky one. I wrote down Ohtani 50-50 bobblehead, but there are actually 2. And so we have a picture of the first one, which is him stealing a base. We also we don't have a picture of the second one. I imagine it's him hitting a home run. I will say quickly, a shout out to Foco. They sent me the coolest bobblehead I think I've ever received, which is Shohei Ohtani's 50-50 right here on the corner. It got prominent placement right here. We moved Vin Scully and Clayton Kershaw over. So we're just saying here, my wife was like, it's got to go on the corner there. So it's gold. He's sitting on a throne. It's freaking awesome. But I've got Ohtani 50-50 bobblehead written down. I'll do the stolen base one. That's the one we know of so far. I like when you get bobbleheads that are slightly different sort of poses than normal. I've got the Trey Turner one. I've got Mookie Betts diving for a catch. So those are kind of cool ones I have. So give me Shohei Ohtani 50-50 steals bobblehead next.
That's a good one. Let's see. Next on my list, I'm going to go for the Fernando Valenzuela bobblehead. Obviously, franchise icon, passed away unfortunately last year, and so now to see the Dodgers, so I don't want to say honoring him, but I imagine that the bobblehead will pay tribute in some regard. I think that'll be a nice one to have. And also, Jeff, I don't know, the chat is saying if you can quickly grab that Ohtani, if it's easy enough, the chat wants to see it.
I got pants on, I promise.
There we go.
So there you go. It's dope. There we go. Founder of the 50-50 club. It's got the bats, Dodgers on the back. So it's it's shout out to Foco. It's awesome. So okay. I guess for the sake of this here, I'll go with the other Ohtani 50-50 bobblehead for my fourth one. There are I believe 3 Ohtani bobbleheads this year. 250. Is it 4? Okay. Because there's an MVP bobblehead and then there's a fourth one. Okay. I couldn't remember, but yeah, I guess you know what? I'm just gonna mix this up for the sake of it. Give me the Blake Snell bobblehead. First time Dodger. He's next on my list. So Freddie, Roki, Ohtani, and Snell. My first 4 choices. You've got Fernando, the Oral jersey, Kobe bobblehead, and what am I missing? Oh, the World Series replica.
Yes.
So you got one last pick here. There's lots of good ones on the board. Ohtani, there's a couple Ohtani bobbleheads, MVP or 50-50. You mentioned Jackie Robinson jersey. There's a sweatshirt that looks pretty dope. There's a Vin Scully bobblehead, Tommy Edman bobblehead, Ice Cube, Yamamoto, Teoscar, Trinan, Glasnow. So you got choices here, Matt. What are you going with your last pick?
I'm going to go with the Ohtani MVP bobblehead. I think the 50-50 ones were intriguing. I think I like the MVP type one. And this is, again, sort of with the caveat of we need to see they haven't unveiled the design of the 4th bobblehead. And so does that end up being another one with decoy? Because if so, like that'll probably vault up the rankings pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Last one on my list. So here's the thing, and Matt and I were talking about this. Part of it is just like, what bobbleheads do you already have? There's a lot of guys I just like. I don't have a Yamamoto bobblehead yet. I don't have a Teoscar bobblehead yet. There's a Blake Trinan bobblehead, which seems cool. I don't have a Tyler Glasnow bobblehead yet. So those are all like, they're on my list because look, if anybody's got an extra one and I'll pay shipping costs, find me on Twitter at Jeff Spiegel. Okay. But I'll mix it up. I think the sweatshirt they're giving out at the beginning of the year is a pretty cool sweatshirt. So it's down to that, the Vin Scully bobblehead, because you can't have too many Vin Scully bobbleheads. Clayton Kershaw and Vin Scully, just all of them I want. Or Tommy Edman. Those are the three that I'm down to. And because I need to win some people back from the chat, Matt, who don't like my Anthony Bonda takes, I'm going to say this. Give me the Tommy Edman bobblehead, number 5, his first bobblehead. So we're going to get Snell's first bobblehead, Edman's first bobblehead, Sasaki's first bobblehead. That's what I'm going with for 5. So again, I've got Freddie's bobblehead, Roki's bobblehead, Ohtani 50-50, Blake Snell, and Tommy Edman as my 5. You've got Kobe bobblehead, which I think is a great pick. That's going to be at the top tier. That and Freddie are the top tier. World Series trophy replica, Fernando bobblehead, Oral Hershiser jersey, and number 5 for you was, the Ohtani MVP bobblehead as well. So again, honorable mention here. I think the Ice Cube bobblehead is probably going to be cool. So shout out to the Dodgers for absolutely nailing it as always. Let us know if you're live with us or in the comments below. Let us know in the chat what you think. What are you most excited for among these promotions? A little bit of breaking news here, not with the Dodgers, but a former Dodger, Jack Flaherty, announced a 2-year deal with the Detroit Tigers. Jeff Passan, of course, breaking the news. 2 years, $35 million contract with an opt-out. So I'll be curious to see how much of this money is in the first year. Like, is this a $25 million and a $10 million? Is this a split in half? Much lower number, Matt, than Jack Flaherty was expecting to get. I think he was hoping to get something like 25 AAV. He does not get anywhere close to that. Again, maybe it's a $20 million deal with a $5 million buyout. Who knows exactly how this plays out, but he can't be pleased necessarily with the number he gets, but he does get to return to Detroit.
Yeah, well, first you could give yourself a pat on the back because you nailed it the first time. Ken Rosenthal says $25 million on the first year.
There you go.
10 million player option on the second year. So yes, this is basically a one year deal. Flaherty will test free agency, I would imagine, a year from now.
$10 million insurance policy against injury, basically, in year number 1.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's interesting. You know, he was open about not necessarily wanting to, as much as he enjoyed and embraced being able to pitch for his hometown team. It didn't seem like he really wanted to be traded from Detroit. I think he both in comments at the time of the trade and this current offseason in different interviews, he's expressed how much he appreciated AJ Hinch and just a lot of the different people with the organization there. And so to see him back there, and I think there was even some comment where he said, you know, him and Skubal leading the rotation, considering what the Tigers ended up doing and getting into the playoffs, that they probably could have made a little bit of noise. And so, yeah, now he gets to go back and pitch for the team that he just came from. And ironically, the Dodgers, their home opener is against the Tigers. And so maybe he'll start in that series. He won't start ahead of Skubal, assuming Skubal's healthy.
Yeah, and look, Flaherty, like, he's going back to a place where he was incredibly successful. He had a 2.95 ERA with the Tigers last year. And so if you're the Tigers, you trade him away, you get a little bit of prospect capital back. I'm spacing on the catcher. Was it Quintero? Was he the one who got traded in that deal?
I forgot.
Anyways, I feel like if it's the catching prospect that I'm remembering that was traded as part of that, like, I think he's a guy that is like a top 100. Oh, Lorenzo. Thank you. Theron Lorenzo. But he's like a top 60, top 70 type prospect in baseball right now. So if you're the Tigers, like, you weren't making a run. You had Jack Flaherty. You signed him for a 1-year deal. He was awesome. Then you trade him to the Dodgers. You get, and Trey Sweeney, as Orlando's pointing out. Thank you. And Trey Sweeney, who like was starting for them in postseason games. And then you get him back the next year. Like, that's kind of a good deal. And $25 million for year 1-year deal. Basically, if he's good, then he's definitely opting out. And if he's bad, you only have to pay him $35 million over 2 years. So this feels like a good deal for the Tigers. Again, I imagine Jack Flaherty is going to be pretty disappointed. I'm guessing he was hoping, Matt, that he was going to get like $100 million deal. You know, he was hoping for 4 and 100 would be my guess. He gets 2 for 35, really 1 for 25, but that's got to be a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of it was some of his inconsistency that we saw in the playoffs, and how much of it was he's kind of just been a victim of a bad, we were discussing it earlier, of a bad free agency period of teams just not really spending. The expectation kept being, once Soto signs, then the market will fully move, when that didn't really happen. And then once all the top starting pitchers come off the board, then and then Sasaki, then the likes of Flaherty and some of the others will start to sign. And that didn't really happen. Now here we are, a little over a week from pitchers and catchers starting to report across the league, and Flaherty is just signing, and there are certainly a lot of other free agents out there. So yeah, I remember early in the offseason, there were reports that Flaherty was looking maybe upwards of like a 5 or 6 year deal, which I didn't necessarily see coming to fruition. And then more recently it started, I think, I don't want to say as reality set in, but basically, given just the landscape of everything, it was starting to be reported that he would be open to this type of deal, basically, short term and basically a 1 year type thing.
One cool thing is, some people have pointed out, is Flaherty will likely be in Los Angeles for the ring ceremony. So with the Tigers visiting Dodger Stadium in that opening weekend, kind of a cool deal that he'll be able to get a ring, which I mean, I guess neither of the prospects that were traded ever made it up to the major leagues with the Dodgers, so they would not be included in that. But again, Jack Flaherty signs with the Tigers, a 2-year, $35 million deal. It's $25 million in year 1, a $10 million player option in year 2, which is basically code for if he gets hurt and is going to miss he can opt in and get paid $10 million. I believe Rosenthal also reporting that could go up to $20 million depending on if he hits some benchmarks. So again, if he hits those benchmarks, I'm guessing he's going to want to opt out and test free agency. But there you go. Rosenthal reporting the $25 million salary will be a top 10 salary for a starting pitcher. I love this, Matt. That's an agent that's texting Ken Rosenthal, and he's like, "You need to tell everybody that my guy got a top 10 AAV for starting." Don't remind him it's 1 year, okay? But tell them that the $25 million he's making this year is top 10.
Yeah, that's good for Flaherty. I know I don't want to say perfect. There was a small chance that I thought maybe, if he just continued to linger on the market, does he come back to the Dodgers on a 1 year to basically this type of deal? Not at the salary, of course, because the Dodgers are paying the penalty on everything because of the luxury tax threshold. But look, it's unfortunate in general how some of these players have basically remained free agents. A lot of quality guys, and I have been open about how I thought Flaherty was a little inconsistent and not necessarily didn't need to be a priority for the Dodgers this offseason. Still was unfortunate just for the sport's sake to see how things have gone, but at least ultimately Flaherty again gets to go back to Detroit, where he enjoyed his time there and spoke very fondly of the organization.
And just a note, last thing to close the loop, kind of an interesting comparison point to Walker Buehler signing a 1 year, $21 million contract. So Flaherty gets 3 or 4 more million in year 1. He has a $10 million player option. Walker Buehler has a $25 million mutual option. So just interesting, 2 guys in kind of very different places, different trajectories, maybe you would say, who at the end of the day kind of end up signing very similar contracts, which is interesting there. So again, Jack Flaherty signing with the Tigers, according to Jeff Passan, confirmed by Ken Rosenthal.
Yeah. And the other wrinkle of our admin is informing us is that, I wasn't sure if Flaherty had ever received a qualifying offer before, but so if he's testing for agency next year, it might be the same thing for him if there's a qualifying offer attached.
Yeah, there you go. All right, let's get to some questions here as we close out our show. All caps questions. We'll get to some of those. And I do want to end. I shared a food opinion with Matt that I think he said is the worst food opinion he's ever heard. And so we'll save that for the end if we've got some time. So all caps questions, if you've got them, and we'll discuss those before moving on. Again, we talked DodgerFest, we talked Kiké, we talked Ryan Brazer, and then the breaking news as we do this live that Jack Flaherty signing with the Detroit Tigers. Let's see. Oh, gosh. Yes. Shoes on the beach, Matt. There are reports confirmed by the man himself that our own Blake Williams, shout out to him covering Chris Taylor's Polar Plunge. Shout out to Chris Taylor and his wife for all the incredible work they're doing in that. But our guy Blake wore shoes to the beach and then they got wet. I don't fully understand what happened, but shoes to the beach to me, Matt, is like an all-time red flag. I wouldn't, you couldn't pay me to wear shoes at the beach.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's okay if you take like an older pair of shoes and like, okay, these, like, I'm gonna wear these basically on the beach and then I'm taking them off before you get back in the car. I forget if Blake has discussed his Crocs on here. Those certainly would have been much more fitting,
extensive Croc selection
for the beach. And so I didn't understand, other than I joked that he didn't want to ruin those. He was going to make sure that those stayed in great condition.
So he went into the water to get the photos that were necessary.
Okay, well,
if you had shoes on, Matt, like, is there anything short of somebody dying that is going to get you walking into the ocean with shoes on?
No, I'm taking them off.
Yeah, get a longer lens. Like, I mean, come on now. That we could live with slightly further away. I appreciate the commitment here. But again, like, honestly, sand in my shoes, Matt, is like an all-time bad feeling. All time.
I don't like sand, just period. So yeah, I can't imagine it being in my shoes.
Okay. Laura says, comment, nice jerseys are back. I'm not sure. Do you know what she's talking about here?
Is she saying like nice, like she's happy jerseys are back? It could be that, or it could be, we did cover it on our website, that Fanatics, MLB, Nike, whoever you want to blame, did fix the issue. The last names and the numbers are bigger again. So Laura is still in here. Maybe she'll clarify. But both of those, yes, excited that Dodgers are giving away jerseys, and yes, also excited that the look of the normal jerseys are back.
Got it. There you go. There you go. Yeah, we've got some clarification, by the way. We got some people saying, Blake says you can't get video in front of them with a longer lens. So there you go. He needed to get in the water to get the shots of people running into the water, I guess. So again, the commitment to the craft, Blake Williams, is oh man, there's comments in here that I just cannot put up on the screen. We'll just leave it at that. LTT Beaches says, guesstimate Roberts' new contract. I kind of was skeptical it's going to be the biggest ever, just because I thought they were going to point at councils and be like, no chance. Andy McCullough thought I was kind of dumb. It seemed like when I suggested that, he thinks it's going to be the biggest ever. He thinks it's going to approach $10 million a year. You agree with that, Matt?
I agree. And I think that that's one reason why maybe it hasn't happened yet. I think that there's some negotiating going on. I think if you're Dave Roberts and his camp, you're looking around saying, hey, you guys obviously have a lot of money to spend. You can take care of your manager without worrying about luxury tax implications.
Okay. Elishiva says, did you see that the broken D is no longer on the front of the Dodgers jersey? I have not. I'm not entirely sure what's going on here.
I have. So it's the because of the different changes to the jerseys last year, how the scripts and the buttons, like it messed up, like it went through the letter. I have not seen. I thought that on the one that Sasaki was wearing at his press conference that it still was broken. I didn't get a good look at. I didn't pay enough attention to the guys at DodgerFest, so I'd have to go back and maybe look at some of the videos and pictures that we have.
Okay, there you go. Now I know what you're talking about. Yeah, the Dodger is not broken in the front, Laura said. So there you go. Some good stuff. Tim said, how much did Kiké slash line improve after getting glasses last year? Can we expect that moving forward? I have heard this when I've brought up how terrible he was in the regular season. People have pointed out that he allegedly, I mean, he did have his eyes fixed, and that allegedly made everything better for him. So, Matt, are you buying that the second half, the last maybe month of Kiké's season? I can't remember exactly when the eye surgery had. I think Blake was the one that maybe had that story initially, or it was. But are you buying this, or do you think he's just a bad regular season player who becomes a good postseason player?
No, I mean, I think if he's healthy, if he can see that he can be a productive player during the regular season, not necessarily to the level of the playoffs. And I think that is just something about October baseball that Kiké Hernandez just really gets up for. And that's not necessarily a level I think that you could really play at for the full, 162 games. Like, I think you'd end up wearing yourself into the ground.
Yeah. August 11th was when the story started to come out. If you look at his August and September, I'll tell you this: 273, 310, 481 slash in August. And that went up to 308, 321, and 500 in September. So in 129 at bats between August and September, he had an OPS that was over 800. So there you go. You want to be optimistic about Kiké Hernandez. There you go. Scooter wants to know who gets the majority of saves for the pen, or is it a mix? I think it's definitely going to be a mix, is my sense. Who do you think leads the Dodgers in saves next year, Matt? You got Kirby Yates, you got Michael Kopech, you got Evan Phillips, and you've got Tanner Scott, I would say, are probably the four. Trinan, you could throw Trinan in there. It's Vesia. They got 6 dudes that are like crazy good. Who do you think leads the team in saves next year?
I think Tanner Scott.
Okay.
And I think the interesting sort of wrinkle to all this will be like, how many relievers do the Dodgers have with like 15 plus saves each type thing? Like I think we could see a scenario where that, or maybe not 15, but 12 and up type. Like it wouldn't fully surprise me.
Yeah, as a guy who plays fantasy baseball, there probably aren't any Dodger closers that you're going to want to prioritize. I thought it was interesting how they used Michael Kopech last year, how they kind of made him just sort of the de facto closer. I would guess actually Kirby Yates or Michael Kopech. I think one of those guys, just because I think Tanner Scott is more of a weapon, so to speak, that maybe comes into big spots or faces some lefties here and there. So I would kind of go Kopech just based on last year, or maybe Kirby Yates if they just wanted somebody else in that spot. Says, shouldn't we be more positive to Ha-Seong Kim's defense and offense if the Dodgers were willing to trade a player of Lux's caliber? Well, look, I know what I believe Lux's caliber is. I don't think most people believe that to be his caliber. Again, I would say I think the Ha-Seong Kim trade makes sense from a long-term perspective. They've got him under team control for like 6 years. I think it's 4 years and then team
3 and
5, 3 and 2, excuse me. So 3-year deal and then 2 years team options. So I think they're playing the long game with him. And again, as I've said earlier, I think they have enough guys to cover these spots. I don't think they're just handing him the starting job and saying, figure it out. I think it's Chris Taylor, it's Kiké Hernandez, it's Tommy Edman can all play second base, and Miguel Rojas can play short, Mookie can play second, and then you've got Pages, Outman, etc. as options in center field. So I don't necessarily, these two were connected, but I don't know if it was like, now the job is yours in the same way that it used to be Gavin Lux's.
I agree. I do think that Kim will receive plenty of opportunity to take hold of the starting job, but I don't think that it's like a foregone conclusion by any means.
Yeah. And I've said this, and I know I have a pretty good guess of who's running the moderator right now, and said that Lux isn't very good. I think Gavin Lux is going to be better than Ha-Seong Kim this year. And I don't know if people consider that to be a hot take. Apparently they do. But I would be strongly believing that Gavin Lux is a more valuable player in pretty much any way you can measure that than Ha-Seong Kim is. Obviously Gavin Lux not for the Dodgers. Dave says, who covered DodgerFest? What was the honest review? He says the event was terrible and the Dodgers should apologize. Matt, you were at DodgerFest. I've seen pictures. I understand the Dodgers, it wasn't the way they wanted to do it because of Dodger Stadium being renovated. But what was your experience kind of outside of what you heard from the players just being there?
Yeah, so it was myself, Blake, and Sebastian were there covering it for our website, and it was in the parking lot again, which I had prior experience with in 2020. From a media standpoint, this one was better than 2020 because where we were interviewing the players was far enough from the main stage that we weren't dealing with music and screaming in the background. But I definitely did feel, because of the rapid pace that they bring players over and then they rotate them through to come talk to us, I did feel that I was sort of stuck there and separated from a lot of what was going on. Blake went to the main stage to try to get some Ohtani's appearance on there with the Sportsnet LA guys, which he did get, and that's on our YouTube channel if you guys want to watch that. Sebastian, I know, went walking around and got some pictures and some video, like B-roll stuff. But yeah, I mean, we have seen, a lot of different complaints of that it wasn't necessarily a pleasant experience. I can't really comment on that because I was like separated from a lot of that. It isn't, if that was the case for fans, it is certainly unfortunate. But yeah, I mean,
Richard with the super chat here. FanFest was a bleep show. 35,000 fans overwhelmed the venue. Huge lines to get in. Huge lines for food and events. Disneyland couldn't believe the lines. It was miserable. So sorry to hear that, Richard. That doesn't sound that awesome. And again, hopefully, if this event happens next year and Dodger Stadium renovations are over with, then they'll be able to. It'll be a better experience. We can hope for that one. We do have a couple more questions here. Oh, Hawaiian Kira asking, Jeff, will you be at a game this season? Ironically enough, there's a chance I make it down to spring training. And the one trip I will be at some games I don't know if there'll be home games. I have a trip to Arizona planned for May to visit some friends, and they are also in Seattle the last games of the season. So crossing my fingers that I'll be able to be in those two places, but I'm not positive if I'll be at any home games in Dodger Stadium, sadly, because I would love to be. Let's see. Go
I
ahead.
will say real quick, Nicole is asking, why couldn't they have done DodgerFest at the Coliseum or something? This is something that I know when Blake and Scott were texting about kind of seeing things of people upset with DodgerFest as I was on my way home. I did start thinking, like, should they change maybe the approach to it and do kind of a central location? The Coliseum is, I mean, with the renovations, it doesn't seat as many people as it used to, but it still is a good size. And because the Lakers, remember, held one of their championship, they did the parade and they held like the celebration there at the Coliseum, where you set something up on the football field, a main stage, and then you let everybody sit in the stadium. That would be interesting, I think, to see. The maybe trade-off for that is I'm not sure the Coliseum has the infrastructure to do a lot of the like signing, meet and greets, and things like that the Dodgers set up. But I mean, yeah, I do think that is certainly an idea worth exploring if they haven't. And there could be, it could be that they have, and they're just logistical reasons, and that's why they can't. But yeah, I mean, I think considering what, the feedback, but again, people weren't complaining, I don't think, last year. This seems to be maybe just unfortunate circumstances with everything going on at the stadium.
Alleluia was asking, are there any nervous levels about the construction being done on time?
Not from the Dodgers. I know Blake got that report when he was at, I believe, Kirby Yates' press conference. If you ask my eyeballs every time I've been at the stadium, yes, and including FanFest, like I just don't see how they're going to finish everything. But the official word from the team is no. There's no concern.
Yeah, March 27th, again, the home opener. Back-to-back, we're mentioning, by the way, that the ring ceremony is actually on the second game of the season, which, look, this is how they get people in, right? You get everybody there on opening day, and then you get everybody to come back because you hand out the rings on day number 2. So you've got that going. We did have one other question from David, and I can't find the exact question, but he wanted to know, Matt, what was on the what's on the Super Bowl menu. And I can't remember if we talked about this last Sunday.
We did a little bit.
Okay.
I still haven't fully figured. I shouldn't say like my wife and I, because she, like I mentioned last time, she's the one that does the cooking.
That's right. You wanted some nacho. You're going old school nacho cheese.
I will be doing nachos. I think that's probably set. I don't want to say set. That's the one kind of thing that's decided. It's easy enough, and like I have been kind of craving them. Outside of that, still not really sure.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, Hawaiian Care mentioning Convention Center, another place. I see people saying the Rose Bowl. So I think it's a fair point. And again, they may not ever have to deal with this because if Dodger Stadium should be ready next year. Okay, for those that are out on Food Talk and don't want to be offended by an opinion that Matt is just disgusted by.
I might need to leave. I might not be able to stick around for this.
Now's your chance. So I frame this as I love cheese. I'm a pro cheese guy. I love all kinds of cheese. I love cheese in most places, but here's my opinion, Matt. I think we put cheese on too many things. And the thing that reminded me of this was like a burrito. So there's a stretch in my life when I had to cut all dairy out of my diet, which is a terrible thing to do, but I had to. And there are certain things where it was a noticeable difference. Like a cheeseburger to a hamburger, it's a big, huge L. Obviously, pizza, quesadillas, etc. But like going to Chipotle and putting cheese in a burrito. If you're building a burrito correctly at a place like Qdoba or Chipotle, now I'm not talking queso to the side. I'm talking shredded cheese. You don't even taste the cheese in that burrito.
Oh, I completely disagree.
So I just think we put it on too many things. I think you're not even tasting it on some of the things we put it on, and therefore you might as well just leave it off. That's my take.
No, yeah, it's wrong. I hear what you're saying, and it's wrong. I strongly disagree. You fully taste the cheese, especially from Chipotle. But also, I will add the caveat that I am convinced that I forget what they're called. I think like a super taster or something, where your taste buds are very sensitive to flavors type thing. I think I am that, because sometimes I'll try something and I'll say this tastes very strongly of X, and somebody else will try it and they'll say no, that's not the case. But I disagree. I mean, I go to Chipotle and ask for extra cheese, and then I ask my wife when she gets her food to ask them for cheese on the side, and so they put it up, and then I take that.
Now, if you go, maybe if you load it up to the degree that you're loading it up, we could talk. I literally had a burrito from a Mexican place, not Chipotle or Qdoba, a real Mexican place. And like, I was like halfway through, I'm like, does this have cheese? Does this not have cheese? And I'm looking and I'm like, I think that's cheese. I definitely can't taste the cheese. Because if you get the right amount of salsa and you get the meat flavored the right way, and you got enough flavors in there that I don't know what cheese is like. Again, compared to a cheeseburger or something where it is like elevating the item, I just don't see how cheese in like that burrito context is elevating things. That's what I got.
I should just unplug now.
Like, I'll say this. Here's another one. You ready for this? If I'm getting a sandwich, just like a turkey sandwich, if the cheese isn't melted, off my sandwich, please. Off my sandwich. Now it's melted, 10 out of 10. Melt the cheese. I want all my sandwiches hot. Cold sandwiches, supremely inferior to warm sandwiches. But like, if it's just like a turkey sandwich, I'd rather just have turkey, lettuce, tomato, onion, some mayonnaise, a little bit of mustard maybe, and I don't need cold cheese on there.
No, I disagree.
There you go.
I won't eat, if it doesn't have cheese, I probably won't eat it.
Yeah. All right. Again, love cheese. Most contexts. I had this opinion and I said, you know what? Matt's going to hate this opinion. And that's what this space is for. So there you go. And look, Nicole, I'll eat cheese straight up. I love eating cheese straight up. I'm just saying, like, there are items that we put cheese on that you don't actually taste the cheese. That's the best summary of my argument. So there you go. Amanda hates it. Look, we all have bad opinions. Okay. You can believe this is mine. Ooh, favorite cheese, mozzarella. Just like a really high-end mozzarella. No. Oh yeah. High-end. Amazing.
This is a tough one. I guess it depends in what context. Because I've discussed it. Like, I love blue cheese on steak. I can do blue cheese with a charcuterie board, but it wouldn't necessarily be like the only one that I could keep eating. So I don't know if it would be my favorite one at that point. Eden says Munster. Munster is it's overlooked. I think that especially for sandwiches.
Okay, I want to show that there is some support. Toshiaki says, I'm with Jeff. A good burrito doesn't require cheese. If you put enough in there to taste it, you're eating a quesadilla in tube form. Great point. Vladimir says, In-N-Out with cold cheese. Don't knock it till you try it. This sounds atrocious.
I did try it, and I will knock it. It was terrible. This is why I ignore the TikTok trends and things like that, because this is where this gets you.
So there you go. Yeah, I'm like way out on that one. Yeah, cold cheese. I've had breakfast burritos where the cheese isn't melted, and I'm just like, this isn't what I want. My cheese needs to be warmed and melted.
It is weird if you get food like in that context where everything is really hot and then the cheese like came from a refrigerator, right? And it's not like melted. Like that is a little.
You an American cheese guy?
It depends on it's not the first one I'm going, but like on a burger, it's fine.
Yeah. Well, like a sausage McMuffin with egg. It's just like American cheese is just gift to the world on that one. So there you go. Comments, crush me for my cheese opinion. I stand by it. Burritos don't need cheese. Tacos don't need cheese. Cold sandwiches don't need cheese. I love cheese on it. Warm cheese on pretty much anything except burritos and tacos. So there you go. That's what I got. But I'm with you. All kinds of cheese. I don't know if there's a type of cheese I don't like. I like pepper jack on burgers. I like blue cheese on burgers. Cheddar, American. Like I said, if I'm just eating plain cheese, like high-end buffalo mozzarella, just could crush the whole thing by myself. I like ricotta cheese. Any cottage cheese I don't like. I don't know if that qualifies for this, but I'm out on that. But
I'm not I think maybe brie is one that I'm not huge on.
Yeah. Okay, but if you had warm brie, I had one of the things where they heat it up and it was insane. This guy's asking, do you like In-N-Out or Red Robin burgers more? It's In-N-Out. Come on. I love Red Robin. Big Red Robin guy here, but In-N-Out by a mile. So Red Robin's great. Shout out, by the way, to In-N-Out. When Luka Doncic was traded, In-N-Out said, hey, congratulations. You get to have In-N-Out instead of Whataburger. 100%, 12 out of 10 tweet.
Yeah, that was good. You're impressing Bob, our good buddy Bob Nightingale, with your cheese.
Yeah, I'm typically not paying. When I'm eating that, it's somebody else's bill.
And also, maybe we can end with this one. El Shiva wants to know if there's any new food types. We don't know yet. I would imagine so. I was just talking to Sebastian about this. It's kind of like the Dodgers every season will add some sort of new food and say they have this, that, and the other. And I feel like for some reason, like it just still sort of falls flat, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But hopefully there'll be something new this year.
We have two last ones here. Canned Cheese Whiz. You in on canned Cheese Whiz?
Probably not.
That's where I draw the line. What about string cheese?
No, not string cheese. I do like the little like triangle ones. Like they come in a like the cow logo.
Yeah.
I forget what they're
Bluebell,
called.
is that what it's called?
I think so. Like those are. I like those with like either Triscuit or Wheat Thins.
Okay.
I'll eat that instead of
There you go.
string cheese.
I mean, string cheese is like mozzarella, so sign me up. You gotta peel it though. Don't take a bite out of it. Don't peel it. No, you take a bite out of it, you're a monster. You gotta peel the string cheese. It's called string cheese. Don't ask me why it tastes infinitely better, but it does. It does. So there you go. All right, everybody. We appreciate you joining us on this Sunday night live show. A ton of fun. Almost 2,200 people in here. Thank you. We appreciate it. Again, if you missed the beginning of the show, we talked a little bit about Lakers because it's a huge story in sports world. Check out Lakers Nation if you've not already. Find them on YouTube. Find them on social media. Trevor, Daniel, and those guys are the best. They are in the same sports network that we are, the Medium Large Sports Network. And so, again, I'll be on the Lakers Nation channel in a couple of weeks doing some shows. And so if you missed it, their coverage, they were awesome. Live last night, Matt, Trevor, they had Keith Smith from Spot Track on as well. And so really, really good stuff there. But this is DodgerHeads. We appreciate you joining us here. If you're new, subscribe, ring the notification bell. That is Matthew Moreno. I am Jeff Spiegel, folks. Enjoy the rest of your night. DodgerFest, tons of video content right on the YouTube page. Interviews with everybody. I mentioned the Mookie one that I went back and watched. There's interviews with everybody. So go check those out. Shout out to Matt, Blake, and Sebastian for getting that content. Enjoy the rest of your night, everyone. As always, go Dodgers. And still champs.